On a cold, rainy night in Lagos, a young man sat on the side of the road, bleeding and shaking. Rain poured heavily from the dark sky, washing the dust from the street and mixing with the blood on his face. His shirt was torn, his hands were shaking. People walked past him, but no one stopped. The young man held his chest as if his heart had been broken into 1,000 pieces. Only a few hours earlier, he had been standing inside a beautiful luxury apartment in Lekki, staring at the girl he loved more than his own life. The girl he sacrificed everything for. The girl he worked day and night for. The girl he sent all his money to. The girl he planned to marry. But that same girl looked at him with cold eyes and laughed.
Look at you, poor carpenter from the village.
Amaka,
You really thought I would marry someone like you?
this is my girlfriend now.
Leave my house. This apartment is not for poor people.
That was how the young man left the building with tears in his eyes. Now, hours later, some street boys had attacked him and stolen his bag. He lay there on the road, weak and broken. But as he slowly raised his head to the dark sky, one painful thought burned inside his heart. All of this suffering, all of this pain, started because of one girl. A girl so beautiful that men lost their senses when they saw her. A girl whose beauty made her proud. A girl who believed the world belonged to her. A girl who thought love meant nothing if there was no money. Her name was Amaka. And this is the story of how her beauty became the beginning of a dangerous journey. Before we continue, do us a favor. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, Folktales with Oni, and tell us where you're watching from. Thank you. Let's go on with the story. In a quiet village called Eziama, surrounded by tall palm trees and wide farms, lived a girl everyone talked about. Her name was Amaka. People said Amaka was the most beautiful girl the village had ever seen. Her skin was smooth and glowing like fresh honey under the sun. Her eyes were bright and sharp. Her long hair flowed down her back like black silk. When she walked through the dusty village road, people often stopped whatever they were doing just to look at her. Even old women in the market would whisper to each other. "That girl is too beautiful," one would say. "Yes," another would reply. "I have never seen such beauty before." Young men in the village lost their senses whenever Amaka passed by. Some would try to greet her, some would follow her with their eyes, some even gathered courage to ask her to marry them. But Amaka had a habit, a very bad habit. She insulted every single one of them. One afternoon, a young farmer named Tom gathered courage and walked up to her near the well. "Amaka," he said nervously, scratching his head, "I have liked you for a long time. I am planning to build my own house soon. I would be happy if you could be my wife." Amaka looked at him slowly from head to toe. Then she laughed. Not a small laugh, a loud mocking laugh. "You," she said, shaking her head, "a farmer? You want to marry me?" Tom's face became red with embarrassment. Amaka folded her arms proudly. "Please go and find someone else," she said. "Someone who belongs in the farm like you." The young man quietly walked away while people nearby watched in silence. But Amaka did not care. In her mind, no man in the village was good enough for her. At home, Amaka lived with her parents. Her father, Okoro, was a quiet and hard-working farmer. He woke up every morning before sunrise to go to the farm. Her mother, Ada, sold food items in the village market. They were good people, but they were very poor. One evening, Okoro returned from the farm tired and dusty. He sat outside their small house and called Amaka. "Amaka, please come and help your mother prepare food." Amaka walked out slowly, fanning herself with her hand. "Father, the sun is too hot. If I stay near the fire, my skin will become dark." Ada quickly spoke up. "Leave my daughter alone," she told her husband. "This girl is too beautiful to suffer like us." Okoro sighed deeply. But she must learn how to cook, he said. Ada shook her head. No, she replied firmly. My daughter will not suffer in this village. She looked proudly at Amaka. This girl will marry a rich man from the city, a man with cars, big houses, and plenty of money. Amaka smiled happily when she heard that. Yes, mother, she said proudly. I will never marry a poor man. Her father shook his head sadly. He knew beauty alone could not build a good life. But nobody listened to him. Amaka even refused to go to the farm. She refused to help in the market. She refused to run errands in the sun. Instead, she spent most of her time admiring herself, applying creams to her skin, and dreaming about a rich life in the city. But Amaka was not always alone. She had one close friend. Her name was Chinasa. Chinasa was also a beautiful girl, but she was very different from Amaka. She was humble, kind, and hardworking. While Amaka stayed at home protecting her skin, Chinasa worked in the market with her parents, helped people in their farms, and saved every small coin she earned. One evening, as both girls sat under a mango tree near the river, Chinasa spoke about her dream. Amaka, she said softly, one day I want to go to Lagos and study in the university. Amaka smiled confidently. I will also go to Lagos, but not to stress myself with books like you. Chinasa looked confused. Then, why do you want to go? She asked. Amaka leaned back against the tree and smiled. To enjoy life, to find a very rich man who will marry me and change my life forever. Chinasa looked at her friend quietly. Something about that dream worried her, because sometimes dreams built only on beauty can lead people into dangerous roads. In Eziama village, everyone knew that Amaka loved only two things, her beauty and her dreams of living a rich life. Every evening, she liked to sit outside her house with a small mirror in her hand. She would admire her smooth skin and smile proudly at her reflection. I am too beautiful for this village, she often said. Sometimes, her friend Chinasa would sit beside her after returning from a long day at the market. Unlike Amaka, Chinasa's hands were often dusty from work. Her clothes sometimes smelled of smoked fish or firewood from the market. But Chinasa did not complain. She had a goal. One evening, Chinasa dropped a small bag of coins on the wooden bench beside Amaka. Amaka looked at it curiously. What is that? She asked. My savings, Chinasa replied with a proud smile. Amaka raised an eyebrow. For what? Chinasa said happily. For my JAMB exam. I want to enter the University of Lagos and study business. Amaka laughed softly. Haha, you are still stressing yourself with books? Chinasa nodded. Yes, education is the only way I can change my life. Amaka waved her hand carelessly. I don't need all that. Chinasa looked at her friend. But Amaka, you also said you want to go to Lagos. Yes, Amaka replied confidently. But I am not going there to suffer in classrooms. She leaned closer and whispered proudly. I will go there to enjoy life, attend parties, and marry a rich billionaire. Chinasa sighed gently. Life is not that simple, she said. But Amaka refused to listen. In fact, Amaka had written the JAM exam many times before, and every single time she failed. Not because she was cursed, but because she never studied. Whenever her father asked her to read her books, she would reply, My beauty will open doors for me. Her mother, Ada, always supported her. One afternoon while they were cooking, Ada looked proudly at her daughter. Amaka, never allow a poor man deceive you, she said. I made that mistake. She pointed toward her husband, Okoro, who had just returned from the farm, tired and sweating. If I had waited, I would have married a rich man in the city by now. Okoro heard the words and shook his head sadly. Ada, teach the girl good character, not pride. But Ada ignored him. My daughter is too beautiful to suffer like me. Meanwhile, In another part of the village, a young man worked hard every day in a small workshop made of wood and zinc. His name was Chike. Chike was a talented carpenter. People from different villages came to him to make chairs, tables, beds, and cupboards. His furniture was known to be the best around. Chike was tall, strong, and handsome. But there was one secret many people knew. Chike was deeply in love with Amaka. Every day when Amaka walked past his workshop, Chike would secretly watch her with admiration. His close friend, Sam, who sometimes helped him sell furniture in the city, often laughed about it. "Chike," Sam said one afternoon while polishing a wooden chair, "why are you wasting your heart on that girl?" Chike looked up. "What do you mean?" Sam shook his head. "Everyone knows Amaka loves only money. She will break your heart one day." But Chike smiled calmly. "I believe there is a good heart inside her," he said. Sam sighed. "You are too kind. Sometimes kindness makes people blind." One afternoon, Chike finally gathered courage. Amaka was walking back from the river when he approached her. "Hello, Amaka," he said politely. Amaka looked at him slowly. "Yes?" "I have liked you for a long time," Chike said honestly. "I would like to take care of you and build a future together." For a moment, Amaka stared at him. Then she laughed, not softly this time, a loud, mocking laugh. "A carpenter," she said, shaking her head. "You really think I would marry someone like you? You are strong, yes, but your clothes are dusty, your hands are rough, and your life, it's just so small." Chike felt embarrassed, but he remained calm. "I may not be rich today, but I work very hard." Amaka scoffed and waved her hand dismissively. "Please leave me alone," she said, smirking. "I am waiting for a rich man from the city who can take me to Lagos, buy me cars, and give me a life I deserve. You are nothing but a village carpenter." Chike watched her walk away slowly. But instead of becoming angry, he simply smiled. Because deep in his heart, he believed one day she would change. Unfortunately, Chike did not know that sometimes love can make people walk into pain without seeing it coming. Days passed in Eziama village, but one thing did not change. Chike still loved Amaka. Even after she had laughed at him and rejected him in front of people, his feelings for her remained strong. Every morning, Chike woke up early and opened his small workshop. The sound of his hammer hitting wood could be heard across the village. Tock, tock, tock. He worked hard every day, making beautiful chairs, beds, tables, and cupboards. People respected him because he was honest and hardworking. His younger sister Lily often helped him clean the workshop. One afternoon, Lily noticed Chike staring down the road again. "Let me guess," Lily said, folding her arms. "You are waiting for Amaka to pass again." Chike smiled a little. "She will pass soon," he said. Lily shook her head. "Brother, that girl does not respect you. She insults every man in this village." Chike sighed. "I know," he said quietly, "but I still care about her." Lily looked frustrated. "Love should not make you foolish," she replied. But Chike only smiled and continued working. Meanwhile, Amaka's life had not changed much. She still refused to cook, she refused to go to the farm, she refused to help her mother Ada in the market. Instead, she spent her time applying skin creams, trying on clothes, and dreaming about a rich life in Lagos. But one day, something interesting happened. Amaka was sitting outside her house when she saw Chike carrying a new chair he had just finished making. The chair was beautiful. The wood was polished and shining in the sunlight. She watched him carefully. Chike was not just hardworking, he was also handsome, and more importantly, he always had money from his work. Amaka slowly smiled. An idea entered her mind. Later that evening, Amaka walked toward Chike's workshop. Chike was surprised when he saw her. "Amaka?" he said happily. "You came here?" Amaka smiled sweetly. "Yes," she said softly. "I came to talk." Chike's heart began beating fast. About what? He asked. Amaka looked down shyly. I have been thinking about what you said before. Chike's eyes widened. You mean about us? Amaka nodded slowly. Maybe I judged you too quickly. Chike could hardly believe his ears. So, does that mean? Amaka smiled. Yes, Chike, she said. We can try being together. Chike felt like the happiest man in the village. He quickly wiped his hands on his shirt and stood up straight. I promise I will take good care of you. And Chike meant every word. But Amaka had a very different reason for agreeing. Not love, not respect, but money. Soon, Amaka began asking Chike for small things. Chike, I need a new cream for my skin. Chike, I need money to buy clothes. Chike, my mother needs some help. Each time she asked, Chike happily gave her money. Sometimes he even worked late into the night just to earn more. Her mother Ada was very happy about this. One evening, she called Amaka inside the house. You are a smart girl, she said proudly. Men should spend money on a beautiful woman like you. Amaka laughed. I know, mother. Ada nodded. Just make sure you collect what you need. Meanwhile, Okoro watched everything silently. One night, he called Amaka. My daughter, he said seriously, do not play with someone's heart. But Amaka simply rolled her eyes. Father, relax. It's not that serious. Chike's friend Sam was also worried. One afternoon, he visited the workshop and saw Chike counting money. What is that for? Sam asked. Amaka needs some things, Chike replied happily. Sam sighed deeply. Again? Chike nodded. She deserves the best. Sam looked at him with concern. My friend, he said, be careful. But Chike refused to listen. Because when someone loves deeply, sometimes they cannot see when they are being used. And unfortunately for Chike, Amaka had only just begun. As the weeks passed in Iziama village, Chike's love for Amaka only grew stronger. Every day he worked harder than before. Sometimes he worked until late at night under a small lantern, carving wood and polishing furniture while others in the village slept. Talk, talk, talk. The sound of his hammer could be heard in the quiet village night. His hands often became rough and tired, but whenever he thought about Amaka smiling, he felt happy again. Meanwhile, Amaka had started visiting his workshop more often. Whenever she came, Chike stopped whatever he was doing. To him, her presence was like sunshine. But Amaka never came without a request. Chike, my hair needs to be done in the salon. Chike, I want to fix new nails. Chike, I need new slippers to match my dress. Chike, I need money for skincare products. Every time she asked, Chike reached into his pocket and gave her money without hesitation. To him, making Amaka happy was more important than anything else. One afternoon, Amaka arrived looking worried. She sat on a wooden chair inside the workshop and sighed deeply. Chike noticed immediately. What happened? He asked gently. Amaka rubbed her forehead. I am tired, she said. Tired of this village. Chike looked confused. Why? Amaka leaned back in the chair. You know I want to go to Lagos, she said, but I'm scared. Scared of what? Chike asked. Amaka hesitated before answering. I failed JAMB last year, she said quietly, and I don't want to fail again. She looked down at the ground. If I fail again, people in this village will laugh at me. I will never be able to leave this place. Chike felt sorry for her. He thought for a long moment. Then an idea slowly entered his mind. What if you didn't have to worry about failing? He said carefully. Amaka looked up quickly. What do you mean? Chike hesitated. Then he lowered his voice. I know someone in the city who can help write the exam for you. Amaka's eyes widened with surprise. You mean someone else will write it? Chike nodded slowly. It will cost money, but if it helps you enter the university and leave this village, I will do it. For a moment, Amaka stared at him in disbelief. Then her face lit up with excitement. Oh, Chike, she said happily, you are amazing. Without thinking, she hugged him quickly. Chike's heart nearly stopped. That moment felt like the happiest moment of his life. "Don't worry," he said proudly. "I will take care of everything." And he truly meant it. Over the next few weeks, Chike worked harder than he had ever worked before. He made more furniture, he accepted extra jobs, he even borrowed money from friends to gather enough cash. Finally, he paid someone in the city who promised to handle the exam for Amaka. Months later, the results were released. Amaka ran to Chike's workshop holding a paper in her hand. "Chike, Chike!" Chike rushed outside. "What happened?" "I passed!" Amaka shouted excitedly. "I passed the exam!" Chike felt joy fill his chest. "I knew you could do it," he said proudly. Soon after, Amaka received admission into the University of Lagos to study medicine. The news spread quickly across Eziama village. People were shocked. Some even called it a miracle. Her mother, Ada, could not stop telling everyone in the market, "My daughter is going to be a doctor," she bragged proudly. But one problem remained: money. University life in Lagos was expensive. School fees, books, clothes, accommodation. But Chike had already made up his mind. One evening, he visited Amaka's family house. "I will sponsor Amaka's education," he said confidently. Okoro was surprised. "Chike, that is too much," he said. But Ada quickly smiled. "That is wonderful," she exclaimed. Chike continued speaking. "I will also rent a private apartment for her in Lagos." Amaka's eyes widened. "You mean I won't stay in the hostel?" Chike shook his head. "No, you deserve a comfortable place." Amaka clapped her hands happily. "This is perfect." Within a short time, Chike arranged everything. He paid her school fees, he bought clothes for her, and he rented a small apartment in Lagos. At the same time, Chinasa had also written the JAMB examination, but unlike Amaka, she studied very hard for it. For months, she read her books every night after helping her parents in the market. All her hard work finally paid off. When the results came out, Chinasa passed successfully on her own merit and also gained admission into the University of Lagos. Her parents were extremely proud of her. Meanwhile, Amaka and Chinasa were both busy preparing for their journey to Lagos. One evening, Chinasa visited Amaka. "I heard Chike rented an apartment for you in Lagos," Chinasa said. Amaka nodded proudly. "Yes." Chinasa hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "Amaka, can I stay with you there?" Amaka looked surprised. "My parents cannot afford rent," Chinasa continued softly. "If I stay with you, I can attend school and also work to support myself." Amaka thought about it for a moment. "Let me think about it," she said. Chinasa smiled with hope. Both girls continued preparing for their journey to Lagos. But their reasons for going to Lagos were very different. One was chasing education and hard work. The other was chasing luxury and rich men. And sometimes, the path people choose can change their destiny forever. The day finally arrived for the two friends to leave Eziama village. The small motor park was busy that morning. Buses were loading passengers, traders were shouting prices, and the smell of roasted corn filled the air. People had gathered to say goodbye. For Amaka, the moment felt like a dream coming true. She wore a bright new dress and dark sunglasses. Her bags were full of clothes, shoes, skin creams, and makeup. Her mother, Ada, stood proudly beside her. "My daughter is going to Lagos," she said loudly to anyone who cared to listen. "Soon she will become a big woman." Amaka smiled proudly. Her father, Okoro, stood quietly nearby. He hugged her gently. "My daughter," he said softly, "remember where you came from, and please take your studies seriously." Amaka nodded quickly. "Yes, father." But deep inside, she had already decided something. She never wanted to return to the village again. Meanwhile, across the park, Chinasa stood beside her parents. Her situation looked very different. Her bags were old and simple. Inside them were only a few clothes and some books. But Chinasa's parents were smiling with pride. They knew how hard their daughter had worked. For many months, Chinasa had done many small jobs to raise money. She helped farmers clear weeds in their farms. She carried firewood to the market to sell. She helped her mother sell smoked fish under the hot sun. Every coin she earned, she carefully saved. Sometimes she studied at night using a small lantern. Her hard work finally paid off. She passed the JAM exam honestly with her own effort. Now she also had admission into the University of Lagos. When the bus finally arrived, the two friends hugged their families goodbye and climbed inside. The long journey to Lagos had begun. As the bus moved along the road, Amaka leaned back comfortably in her seat. "Lagos, here I come," she said with excitement. Chinasa smiled. "Yes," she said quietly, "this is the beginning of a new life." But even though they were traveling together, their minds were focused on very different dreams. After several hours, the bus finally entered Lagos City. Tall buildings stood everywhere. Cars filled the busy roads. The noise of the city was loud and exciting. Amaka's eyes widened with excitement. "This place is amazing," she said. Soon, they arrived at the small apartment Chike had rented for Amaka near the university. The building was simple but comfortable. When Amaka entered the apartment, she looked around carefully. "It's okay," she said. "It will do for now." Chinasa quietly placed her small bag on the floor and looked around the room. After a moment, she turned to Amaka. "Amaka," she said softly. "Yes," Amaka replied. Chinasa hesitated for a moment. "Do you remember what I told you back in the village?" Amaka looked at her. "You mean about staying here?" Chinasa nodded. "Yes. My parents cannot afford accommodation right now. If I stay with you, I can focus on school and also find small work to support myself." She spoke humbly. "I promise I will not be a burden." Amaka already knew where the conversation was going. She stood quietly for a moment, thinking. The truth was, she did not really want to share the apartment with anyone. But she also remembered something important. She could not cook. She hated cleaning, and she did not like doing house chores. Slowly, a small smile appeared on her face. "Okay," Amaka said finally. Chinasa's eyes lit up with relief. "Really?" "Yes," Amaka replied, "but on one condition." "What condition?" Chinasa asked. "You will cook, you will clean the house, and you will handle everything at home." Chinasa did not even hesitate. "That's fine," she said quickly. She was simply grateful to have a place to stay. And so the two girls began their life in Lagos together. But even though they shared the same apartment, their hearts were walking on two very different roads. One was chasing knowledge and a better future. One was chasing wealth, luxury, and the attention of rich men. And in a city like Lagos, those choices can change a person's destiny forever. Life in Lagos moved very fast. For Chinasa, every day was busy. She woke up early each morning before sunrise. She swept the small apartment, washed the dishes, and prepared simple food before going to class. Chinasa did not depend only on the little money her parents sent. She knew Lagos was expensive and she had to work hard to support herself. So she found a small job at a business center on campus. There, she worked as a typist, helping students type their assignments and projects. Every day after lectures, many students came to the shop with handwritten notes. Chinasa sat behind the computer, typing quickly and neatly. For every assignment she typed, she earned a small amount of money. But that was not the only thing she did. Back home, Chinasa had learned how to make liquid soap. So in the evenings, she mixed ingredients carefully and made liquid soap in the small kitchen of their apartment. She poured the soap into plastic bottles and sold them to students on campus. Many students liked buying from her because it was cheaper than the ones in the supermarket. Little by little, Chinasa began making enough money to support herself. She used it to buy books, handouts, and other school materials. Because her lectures and work took much of her time during the day, Chinasa often studied late into the night. Many nights, she sat at the small table with her books open, reading quietly while the rest of the building slept. She was always tired, but she never complained. She knew she was building her future step by step. But while Chinasa studied at night, Amaka was usually busy with something else. Instead of reading her books, Amaka often lay on her bed scrolling through social media. Her phone screen glowed brightly in the dark room. Messages from different guys kept popping up. "Hey, beautiful, are you free tonight? Let me take you out tomorrow." Amaka smiled as she replied to them one after another. Sometimes she sent selfies. Sometimes she laughed while chatting with them. Studying was the last thing on her mind. Amaka quickly became very popular on campus. The moment she started attending classes, people began talking about her beauty. Students whispered whenever she walked past, "Who is that girl? She's new. She's too fine." Amaka enjoyed the attention very much. Every morning, she spent a long time choosing her clothes. Most times, she wore tight and stylish outfits that showed her beauty clearly. Whenever she walked across the university campus, heads turned. Groups of boys often whispered and nudged each other. "Guy, see that girl? Ah, that's one queen." Some of them gathered courage to approach her. "Hi," one tall boy said one afternoon. "My name is Chris. You're new here, right?" Amaka smiled politely. "Yes, I just started." Chris grinned. "Maybe we should hang out sometime." Another boy walked up later that day holding a small box. "Amaka, I saw this necklace and thought of you." She opened the box and admired the shiny necklace. "Wow," she said softly. "Thank you." Sometimes, Amaka allowed some of the boys to take her out. They bought her food, drinks, and small gifts. But after enjoying their attention and money for a while, she would suddenly lose interest. "I'm sorry," she would say coldly. "You're not really my type." Many young men left with disappointed faces and broken hearts. Meanwhile, her classes slowly became less important. Some days she arrived very late. Other days she skipped lectures completely. Whenever she needed money, she called Chike. One evening, she held her phone and dialed his number. "Hello, Chike," said happily from the other side. "Hi, Chike," Amaka replied sweetly. "How are you?" "I'm fine. How is school?" he asked. Amaka sighed softly. "School is very expensive." Chike immediately became concerned. "What do you need?" Amaka began listing things. "I need textbooks and handouts, my lab coat too, and my classmates are buying new laptops for assignments." She paused before continuing. "And I also need money to fix my hair again. My nails are already old. I also need skincare products and some new clothes for classes." Chike did not hesitate. He said, "Don't worry, I will send money tomorrow." Even though his furniture business was starting to slow down, he still found ways to send money. Sometimes he borrowed from friends. Sometimes he worked late into the night making furniture. His friend Sam often shook his head when he saw this. "Chike," Sam said one afternoon, "you are suffering too much for that girl." Chike only smiled. "She is my future wife." But far away in Lagos, Amaka's life was already moving in another direction. One Friday evening, some girls from her class invited her to a big party. "It's going to be amazing," one of them said excitedly. "Rich guys will be there." Amaka's eyes sparkled. That was exactly the kind of place she liked. That night, Amaka dressed carefully. She wore a beautiful red dress and high heels. Her makeup was perfect and her long hair flowed over her shoulders. When she entered the party hall, many heads turned immediately. Music was playing loudly, lights were flashing, students were dancing and laughing. Amaka walked in confidently like a queen, and that was when she saw him. Across the room stood a tall, handsome young man surrounded by several people. He wore expensive designer clothes, a shiny wristwatch glittered on his hand. In his fingers were the keys to a very expensive sports car. People around him treated him with respect. His name was Jason. Jason was known on campus as one of the richest students. He lived in a big mansion, he drove luxury cars, and he always had plenty of money. When Jason saw Amaka walking into the party, he froze for a moment. He had never seen such beauty before. "Who is that girl?" he asked one of his friends. "That's Amaka," the friend replied. "She's new in the university." Jason smiled slowly. "I want to meet her." A few minutes later, he walked confidently towards her. "Hello," he said smoothly. "My name is Jason." Amaka looked at him carefully. Handsome, rich, confident, exactly the kind of man she had always imagined. She smiled. "Nice to meet you." From that moment, something dangerous began to grow. Jason became very interested in Amaka, and Amaka became very interested in Jason's money. Soon, Jason started taking her out in his expensive cars. He bought her new clothes, new shoes, jewelry. He gave her large amounts of money, and slowly, Amaka began spending more and more time with him. But there was one big problem. Far away, there was still a man named Chike, a man who believed he was working hard to build a future with her. Unfortunately, he had no idea that someone else had already taken his place. Jason continued spending money on Amaka as if money meant nothing to him. Every time they went out, he bought her something new. One afternoon, he surprised her with a brand new iPhone 17. "Wow, Jason, are you serious?" Amaka exclaimed as she held the phone, her eyes shining with excitement. Jason laughed proudly. "Of course, my girlfriend deserves the best." He also bought her expensive shoes, designer handbags, perfumes, and jewelry. Sometimes he sent money to her account just for shopping. Soon, Amaka began returning home with shopping bags almost every day. One evening, Chinasa noticed the expensive items spread across the bed. The shiny phone, new shoes, and designer clothes were impossible to ignore. She looked at Amaka with curiosity. "Amaka, where did all these things come from?" Amaka hesitated for a moment. "Oh, it's nothing," she said casually, "just some friends." But Chinasa wasn't convinced. "These are not small gifts," she said slowly. Amaka sighed and finally spoke. "Okay, fine. I'm dating someone." Chinasa folded her arms. "Who?" Amaka smiled proudly. "His name is Jason. He's very rich. He treats me like a queen." Chinasa's expression immediately changed. "Amaka, what about Chike?" Amaka rolled her eyes. "Please, don't start that lecture." "But he is your boyfriend," Chinasa said firmly. "He has been supporting you." Amaka laughed mockingly. "Chike?" she said with a dismissive tone. "That poor carpenter?" "Chinasa, please be serious." She stared at her in disbelief. "He has been sending you money. He works day and night for you." Amaka waved her hand carelessly. "If he wants a refund for the little money he spent on me, Jason can pay him 10 times more." Chinasa shook her head sadly. "That's not the point. What you are doing is wrong." She reminded her gently. "Chike believed in you. He sacrificed a lot for you." But Amaka stood up, clearly annoyed. "Chinasa, please mind your business," she said sharply. "My life is my life." And with that, she ended the conversation. As the weeks passed, Amaka began spending more and more time with Jason. She often visited his large mansion. The place was luxurious, big rooms, beautiful furniture, expensive decorations. Sometimes she stayed there late into the night. Other times she slept there. Jason treated her with romance and luxury. He took her to expensive restaurants. They drove around the city in his flashy sports cars. Amaka felt like she was finally living the life she had always dreamed of. But one day, she complained to Jason. "Jason," she said while sitting beside him in the living room, "my apartment is too small." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Too small?" "Yes," Amaka continued. "And the area is not even a nice part of Lagos." She leaned closer and added softly, "I don't like living there." Jason looked at her for a moment. He didn't want his girlfriend living anywhere he considered low. A few days later, he called her excitedly. "Pack your things," he told her. "I have something better for you." Jason had rented a beautiful new apartment in Lekki. The building was modern and elegant, the rooms were spacious, the environment was quiet and comfortable. Amaka could hardly believe it when she saw the place. "This is amazing," she shouted happily. Jason smiled. "Like I said, my girlfriend deserves the best." Soon, Amaka moved into the new apartment. Even though Chinasa was deeply uncomfortable with the situation, she moved with her. She had nowhere else to go and didn't want to become homeless. But the situation continued to worry her. One evening, Chinasa tried again to talk sense into her friend. "Amaka," she said gently, "this is not right." Amaka frowned. "What now again?" "You are still cheating on Chike. He is the one sponsoring your education." Amaka sighed in frustration. "Chinasa, please mind your business." She turned away dismissively. "I know what I'm doing." But things were getting worse. Amaka slowly stopped communicating with Chike completely. Days turned into weeks. Chike rarely heard from her anymore. Whenever he called, she either refused to pick the call or she answered briefly and gave excuses. "I'm busy with school. I have lectures. I'll call you later." But she never did. Chike began to worry deeply. He missed her voice. He wondered if something was wrong. One afternoon, he decided to visit Amaka's family house to check on her. When he arrived, he greeted her mother respectfully. "Good afternoon, Mama Amaka." Her mother, Ada, forced a small smile. "Ah, Chike, you're welcome." Chike looked worried. "Mama, have you spoken with Amaka recently?" Ada nodded quickly. "No, not really. She has been very busy with school. She doesn't call often these days." Chike sighed with relief. "Oh, okay." But what Chike didn't know was that Ada was lying. She knew her daughter was now dating another man, Jason. Amaka had been sending her money regularly and calling her often. But Ada said nothing. She simply watched quietly as Chike walked away, still believing that the girl he loved was faithful to him. And far away in Lekki, Amaka was already living a completely different life with another man.
Things were no longer moving well for Chike's carpentry business. For many weeks, customers had stopped coming as they usually did. The workshop that was once busy and full of activity now felt quiet and empty. Several pieces of furniture stood unfinished in the corner: tables, chairs, cupboards, all waiting for buyers who never came. Chike often sat on a wooden stool in the workshop, staring at them with worry on his face. To make things worse, his close friend Sam had traveled to another town for a while. Sam was the one who usually helped take some of their finished furniture to the city to sell. Whenever they sold something there, they shared the money and used it to support the business. But now Sam was not around. Money was becoming tight. And on top of all that, Amaka still had not called him. Weeks had passed. Whenever Chike called her phone, she either refused to answer or she answered briefly and quickly gave excuses. "I'm busy. I'm in class. I'll call you later." But she never called back. Chike's heart grew heavy with worry. One evening, after sitting alone in the workshop for a long time, he made a decision. He would travel to Lagos to see her. Maybe something was wrong. Maybe she was truly too busy. Or maybe she needed help. Early the next morning, Chike packed a small bag and boarded a bus to the city. After many hours of travel, he finally arrived in Lagos. The city was loud and busy as always. Cars honked. People rushed along the streets. Chike made his way to the small apartment where he had originally sent money for Amaka to rent with her friend. When he reached the building, he knocked on the door. But the person who opened the door was not Amaka. A stranger stood there. "Yes?" the woman asked. Chike looked confused. "Please, Amaka lives here." The woman shook her head. "No, she moved out some time ago." Chike felt his heart skip. "Moved out?" "Yes." He looked around nervously. "Do you know where she lives now?" Some other tenants in the compound came outside after hearing the conversation. One of them spoke. "That girl, she moved to Lekki." "Lekki?"
Chike repeated in surprise. The man nodded. Yes, a big apartment in one of the best areas. Chike was shocked. How could Amaka suddenly afford an apartment in Lekki? Still confused, he decided to go there. After asking several people for directions, he finally found the building. It was beautiful and expensive looking. The compound was clean. Luxury cars were parked outside. Chike walked slowly toward the door and knocked. A few seconds later, the door opened. Standing there was Chinasa. Her eyes widened immediately when she saw him. Chike? She looked completely surprised. Chike, what are you doing here? Chike forced a small smile. I came to see Amaka. Chinasa stepped aside and welcomed him inside. How are you? She asked. I'm fine, he replied quietly. They sat down in the living room. Chike looked around in amazement. The apartment was beautiful. The furniture was expensive. Everything looked luxurious. After a moment, he sighed. My carpentry business has not been going well lately, he said honestly. Customers are not coming like before. Sam is also not around to help sell some furniture in the city. He paused. And Amaka hasn't been picking my calls for weeks. Chinasa looked uncomfortable. She didn't know what to say. Just then, the sound of laughter came from outside. A moment later, the door opened. Amaka walked in, but she was not alone. Beside her stood Jason. They were laughing and holding hands. The moment Amaka saw Chike sitting in the living room, she froze. Chike stood up slowly. His face showed shock and confusion. Amaka. The moment the room became silent, then Amaka's expression changed. Her face became cold. Why are you here? She asked sharply. Chike looked hurt. I came to see you. He looked at Jason. Who is this? Jason simply stood there quietly, watching. Amaka crossed her arms. This is Jason, she said proudly, my boyfriend. Those words hit Chike like a heavy blow. Boyfriend? Chike repeated slowly. But, Amaka, I'm your boyfriend. Amaka laughed mockingly. You? She shook her head. Chike, please be serious. You're just a poor carpenter from the village. Chike looked deeply hurt. Amaka, I have been supporting you. I sent money for your rent. I worked day and night for you. Amaka rolled her eyes mockingly. That small money? She waved her hand dismissively. If you want a refund for that chicken change, Jason can pay you 10 times more. Chike's voice trembled. Amaka, please. But she cut him off. Move on with your life, she said coldly. You're broke, you're poor, and you're not even educated. Jason stood beside her with a proud expression. Then Amaka pointed to the door. Leave my house. Chike looked around slowly. This house? Amaka smirked. Yes, my boyfriend is the one paying for this luxurious apartment, not that small dump you gave me money to rent before. Chike's eyes filled with tears. Amaka, please don't do this. But her voice became louder. Get out. Leave my house. Chike stood there for a moment, broken and helpless. Then, slowly, he turned and walked toward the door. Outside, the night air felt cold. He walked along the street without direction. His heart felt shattered. Hours later, he sat quietly by the roadside. The pain inside him was too heavy. Rain slowly began to fall from the dark sky. Just then, a group of street boys noticed him sitting there. They walked toward him. Guy, give us your bag. Chike held his bag tightly. No. The boys became angry. They attacked him. They punched and kicked him repeatedly. Chike tried to resist, but there were too many. Finally, they grabbed his bag and ran away, leaving him lying on the road in the rain, bleeding, weak, and completely broken. And that was how everything began. Because the young man lying on that roadside was the same man who had once loved a girl with all his heart, a girl named Amaka. And this was only the beginning of a dangerous journey. End of part 1.
Did you enjoy the story so far? If you did, please don't just click away. Support the creators of this channel. Folktales with Onyi. We spend sleepless days and nights bringing you powerful, emotional, and unforgettable African stories like this. Please subscribe, like, and share this video with your friends. It really helps us grow and bring you even more amazing content. And while you're waiting for part 2, go ahead and watch the next recommended video on your screen. I promise you're going to love it. Until next time, stay inspired.